there was a lady called Kathy Moore, and her kind of whole thing was think about the content last, but think about the way that you know what you want people to achieve and how you want them to practice it first.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of the EdTech podcast, part of the Voctech podcast Learning Continued series, which seeks to explore the intersection of adult learning and tech. This series is supported by Ufi Voctech Trust, and my name is Sophie Bailey. For those who listened in to episode 196 on building back better in remote working, here's a message from a listener which might resonate with many of you listening in. It said, "Hello, just listened to your episode 196, so interesting, ! Some points really resonated in," and I'll put in here, anonymous employer, "they've just pushed through teams very quickly with no support. A colleague told my boss that it made her feel sick. She was so worried and has decided to leave as a result. I think we have a lot left to learn to build back better." So thank you very much for sending that in, Listener X. I've kept that anonymous so we don't increase the unemployed statistics by one overnight. But yeah, I think we're definitely in this phase of the pandemic where perhaps some of the flaws in our execution of using technology are becoming apparent. And I'm pretty sure we're at that point in the pandemic where just pushing on through won't work for much longer. Now, a quick message from us. These are rapid times of change, and we'd like to help facilitate any experiences and knowledge between you as listeners. So 2 things for you. Number 1, if you'd like to write a blog for us at the EdTech podcast for our guest blog feature, which we'll mention on the podcast, do get in touch. We're looking for constructive thoughts on how to improve digital teaching and learning and administration from early years right up through higher education and into the workplace. If this is something you'd like to get involved with, do get in touch. Or if you've got something you'd love to get off your chest on the EdTech podcast, either as a group record, a book review, a news review, or something else, then do let us know. We're keen for the community audience we've built up to share with one another as much as possible. So the email you'll need is the edtechpodcast@gmail.com, and we will be sure to get back to you as soon as we can. Right, announcement over. In this week's episode, we throw back to a past recording with John Brindle, a learning technologist at the University of Liverpool, who offers up lots of useful frameworks for those who might be finding themselves thrown into the world of learning technology and online learning pedagogy and all the head scratching that entails. So here we go. Here's the recording with John. Do stay in touch with any thoughts, comments, brain processing with all that's going on, and have a great week, everyone. So, yeah, it's fantastic to have John Brindle, who is a learning technologist at the University of Liverpool, the management school department. So welcome, John.
Hi there, you okay?
Not too bad, thank you.
Great.
What's the weather like where you are?
Freezing cold. A room that I think has been built on an Indian burial ground because I'm freezing in here.
Okay, it just makes me feel slightly better. Yeah, it's also quite chilly down here. So for our listeners, a little bit of background. John joined the management school as a learning technologist, focusing on the thoroughbred horse racing industry MBA. Prior to joining the University of Liverpool Management School, John worked as an e-learning developer for a large pharmaceutical company where he designed a wide range of retail and management development training modules. He has also worked as a TL content developer for the School of Life Sciences, focusing on continuing professional development with the Postgraduate School of Medicine, and spent 10 years teaching in and leading a department within a sixth form college. He has a broad understanding of learning and teaching strategies, particularly in relation to the use of technology, and is skilled at working with subject matter experts to translate their courses into blended and fully online student experiences. So welcome, John. Thank
you very much. That sounds quite impressive, actually. I'm
it does.
Impressed
You've done
with
a good
myself.
job there. So first of all, let's talk about learning technology in relation to thoroughbred horse racing. How does all that work?
So the thoroughbred horse racing MBA kind of came out of an industry requirement. The university's been running it for a number of years now, but we actually looked at a redesign a couple of years ago where we actually started looking at fully blending the course for students. So what we have is we've got predominantly workplace learners. So these are part-time students who are working within the industry or who are changing careers to come and work within the thoroughbred horse racing industry. It's very interesting because we've used technology. We used a number of design principles to integrate technology into the teaching, so we could put 6 of the core MBA modules online for the students, and then the thoroughbred horse racing industry specific 6 modules they can then study on campus with us, with some blended content as well. So it's really interesting. It's been a really interesting project, actually.
Fascinating. And so I'm guessing there is quite a legacy industry in terms of thoroughbred horse racing in Liverpool, but it's not my forte. So
it's not mine either. I mean, we have access to Aintree Racecourse, which has a real deep heritage, and we've actually been over and done some work with Aintree and spoken and interviewed their executives so that we can produce great content with the students there. So I think it was born out of the kind of requirement for the industry, and because we have specialties in sports management here, it kind of came from that, which is it's fascinating because I started 2 years ago, so already this course was established, but I started with the redesign 2 years ago, which is quite.
And so
cool.
was the main objective of that redesign, is that to make it more accessible for people who are busy and working as well as studying?
It is, yeah. So it's to make sure that the course is flexible. So we've done things. We trialed a few things on one of the cohorts who were studying on the previous course. So we looked at mobile first learning, so that the learners could learn on the go. So we did some work with Blackboard and their new version of Blackboard Learn, and they let us use their latest version to push mobile first learning, which was really useful for the students. And now we're currently moving provider at the university so that we can offer more mobile content and things like that. So it's little things like that. It's making it so that it can integrate into the everyday working life is really important, so that these people aren't taking lots of time away from their day jobs. And also it can open up some international appeal as well for us.
In terms of some of the content, could you enlighten us as to what might be what might form part of that content if you're studying thoroughbred horse racing management?
Yeah, so it's a lot of it is we use a lot of video content, and it's a lot of it is about management skills. So there's things like finance within there. So we have a brilliant finance tutor who's created some great videos on talking the students through some key points in finance, and it's general management skills that we've kind of dealt with. And then also they study. We have a campus where they can go and study equine welfare, so with the veterinary school as well. So it's integrated with the veterinary school. It's not just management, because obviously the welfare of the horse is really important to these people. So it's and to us as well. But it's great. It's a really interestingly structured course.
And have you had the chance to kind of experiment with any other technologies as in your role, either at University of Liverpool or other previous jobs?
Yeah, so we've looked at my rule with technology is generally the technology comes last. So we kind of align everything that we do to the outcomes. So it's all based on constructive alignment. So if we can enhance that experience with a bit of technology, then it's important to look at how we can enhance and how that then feeds forward to what the students are going to learn and ultimately produce as an assessment. So what we've looked at previously is I developed a system, an artificial intelligence system that took videos the students had reflected, turned them into word clouds so that they could see the general gist, but then it would use sentiment analysis to analyze whether that student was being positive or negative in their main language, so they could get an idea of self-reflecting based on a video that they created that was, all went through IBM Watson to then transcribe, produce a word cloud, and analyze the sentiment of that. So some really cool little things, because the students could then look at that word cloud and go, oh, actually this topic that we've been discussing, I've not been feeling great about that. So how can I address that? So trying to help look at self-reflection as well, because I think a lot of things, and that was again focused around MBA. I think a lot of things with MBA is those practical skills of being able to reflect and apply that learning. So we can use technology to enhance that. It just kind of helps a little bit.
That's really
and we use these really cool little swivel robots, and you just put an iPad in the top and it follows the student when they walk around and things. It's dead cool. It's fun. I love technology, so it's kind of doing little things like that. It's really good fun.
So the robots, what was the purpose of that one?
Well, it was actually more ease of use, because the students just had to push one button to record a video and then push the button again and it would upload to the cloud. So it was mainly for the software, but then the fact that we had the flexibility that if we wanted to use it to, say, record them giving a presentation, then if they moved, then they would always stay in the center of the frame whenever they were moving around. So it kind of makes it a little bit better in terms of the what they're looking at, and whether they can look at their own body language while they're presenting and things like that as well.
Fascinating. Yeah, I mean, that's so interesting, because so much of connecting with other people is, the words we choose and how we convey messages, and usually you just kind of get through it and on to the next thing. So being able to take stock and learn and from that experience as well must be huge.
Yeah, it's really cool, and obviously my role, I'm not an academic, I'm not student facing, but it's my role is to help these students, help the academics and encourage them to use technology in a really constructive way with their students. Because often lecturers are using, they've got huge numbers of people in a classroom, and how can they enhance that experience? It might just be simply using a polling app like Poll Everywhere or something like that to just gauge the room and get some ideas of what questions might be coming up. But it can get into more complex territory as well, like doing things like the artificial intelligence. And I'm writing a Twitter bot at the moment that scrapes Twitter and produces analysis based on a hashtag as well. So it's just fun. It's just lots of little interesting, fascinating things, and
And how did you get into it, John? How did you get into learning technology?
So it was through. I was a teacher for 10 years. And then I moved into them I was a professional musician for 2 years as well.
Oh, wow.
I played as a guitar player I went around the country and stuff like that.
What was your band called? I'm going to have to ask that now.
We were a cabaret band called Popwork, yeah. So I did a bit of work with them. And then I went out on my own as well with an acoustic guitar, but we won't talk about that. It's fine. But so then I saw an opportunity to do content development. So my background is multimedia design, really, not music. So I got into content development for the School of Life Sciences, as you mentioned. And we're actually one of the academics there, the academic learning technologists. It encouraged me to do my master's degree in blended and online education. So I'm just finishing that now. I'm just writing my dissertation up. And I've done that through Edinburgh Napier University. And it's really inspired me to kind of keep going. So I started that when I was in the life sciences, and then went into e-learning development for the pharmacy company, which was totally different. The culture, it was very, very different. So actually, instead of aligning to learning objectives, trying to align to key performance indicators and prove return on investment for training and things like that. And then coming back to a management school armed with some of that knowledge has been really interesting. So it was I kind of built myself up to learning technology. So it's been quite interesting in that way.
Wow. Yeah. So you must be feeling really relieved to be coming towards the end of your masters, but perhaps thinking, what do I do next after that?
That's it. Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm starting to think about what I want to do next, and it's a little bit. I'm not too sure whether to go to the next level or not yet, but I might do. I've got some ideas, but I don't know whether to go that far with what I'm doing. I thoroughly enjoy what I do. You see, so it's quite interesting. But nothing's off the table yet.
You mentioned also working in the pharma company, the different culture there.
Yeah.
which is interesting because our guest that's out on the podcast at the moment is again within sort of corporate training, and that sort of tension between trying to prove your return on investment, etc.
Yeah.
She mentions that as well. But I just wondered, from that experience working in that environment, what your kind of takeaways were.
So I think the key thing for me, so there was a lady called Kathy Moore, and she's got a brilliant website that details a lot of the methods that I used, and I used a couple of different methods that I integrated together, and her kind of whole thing was think about the content last, but think about the way that what you want people to achieve and how you want them to practice it first. So if you've got, for example, I'm trying not to be pharmacy specific here, but if you've got to increase the uptake of a flu jab service for a retail pharmacy, you need to know what people need to do to be able to do that first, and then how they can practice doing that, and then the content they need to do it. So your content comes last. I'd always say to anybody when they're trying to align to a specific objective is take the objective first, and then how people are going to demonstrate that objective, how they're going to practice demonstrating that objective, and then what information they need to effectively practice that. And you can implement behavior changes that way as well.
I was just about to say, so it's more about the behavioral change, and then
it is, yeah.
And then slotting in the content that you kind of want them to look at, but actually how you're going to motivate them to actually get their head around it first of all.
Totally. So then when we did everything, we changed. I changed the way that we approached the e-learning to be more scenario based. So it was a patient walks through the door and they pick up Lemsip. We're in the winter, so people pick up Lemsip all the time. How do you talk to the patient about that purchase? There's a duty that a pharmacy has to make sure the medicines they're selling, even if they're things that you can pick up in the supermarket, is correct.
Right.
So they have to ask. They have specific questioning that they should be using, and it was a kind of direct response to a witch report that the pharmacy industry had, where they found that all of the big retail pharmacy companies weren't asking the correct questions of patients. So we used that as a launch pad to then build content that always ensured that they were asking those questions. They couldn't get all the information out of the patient unless they did ask the correct questions. So we used a framework called CAF, which is context, challenge, action, feedback. So you give them a context, so the person walks into the pharmacy. You challenge them to respond to that patient, so they have to take some action. And then they get feedback, and that's either intrinsic feedback, so built into the conversation they're having, or extrinsic at the end, and delayed feedback, where they get feedback that says, well, you asked these questions right, but you didn't ask these ones correctly. Go back to the beginning and have another go. And making those interactions really short as well, so that pharmacies are extremely busy.
Yeah.
So making them extremely short and punchy, so that the information's there, they can work through the scenario, and if they need to, they can take it again in a matter of minutes. Not delaying that chance to have another go until they get it right.
I mean, what's quite interesting about that is I think a lot of people listening in will be able to take something from that in their own scenario anyhow, but just because we're all under time pressure and needing to kind of hit these objectives that we're set as well.
Yeah, I think it's key because my sixth form teaching was based around vocational education, so it was BTEC. So I know I had that understanding of how you make things kind of vocationally aligned and authentic for students, and then authentic for you're working in an industry. It has to be authentic, because you can't baffle them with academia, because they don't want to know that. They just want to know what they need to do to get the job right.
And what's your kind of take on where vocational education is now?
I'm very interested by vocational education. Because I've been out of kind of sixth form for a number of years. I can really see the value in apprenticeships and things like that. Within the team that I was in, we had amazing apprentices who were fantastic and really got a lot of value out of the apprenticeship experience. And I can see the positive impact that's had on some young people who might not want to go and study A levels or things like that. I'm not sure what BTECs are doing at the minute, because I was a really big advocate of BTEC. I thought that they were some of the best qualifications that we could offer, because they were so vocational, but you could build your assessment how you wanted it to kind of fit, so that you could fit it around the equipment that you had in the college. So yeah, it's very interesting. Right now in universities, we're finding there's a big push to authentic assessment, so assessment that mimics industry. So I think we're really taking little bits of that vocational education and trying to feed them through. Certainly one of the kind of hallmarks of Liverpool teaching now is authentic assessment, and we're trying to work with academics to improve that.
Fantastic. Final question.
Go on.
What future tech and trends are you seeing? So across not just vocational, but everywhere that you're picking up bits and bobs.
So I actually spoke early last year at a manufacturing event about my work in the pharmacy and warehouse automation and things like that. I think that the danger is we're looking at, everyone's kind of throwing out AI and everyone's throwing out automation, but I think it's ethics is the biggest thing that we need to kind of think about in the future, and the ethical use of technology, and the way that if we're producing smarter artificial intelligence bots that can do greater data analysis, how are we implementing that ethically, and how are we thinking about the impact that that's going to have on the future? We always hear the talk. We've got Education 4.0 that JISC have kind of spearheaded, and actually I spoke about that at the Alt-C conference this year with Professor Julie Salmon, and we ran a workshop on what are the future things, what are the barriers to enabling Education 4.0. And it was really interesting to see that everybody came up with the same things. It was systems. So I think universities need to get a handle on the way that their systems support future technology. So when we do come into looking at, analytics and big data and artificial intelligence and how we can use those to kind of facilitate and enhance experience, I don't think you're ever going to get rid of teachers. I don't think you're ever going to get rid of learning technologists, I hope. But I think I think more and more we're going to be seeing that kind of support from those things. So curated content's quite a good one, where artificial intelligence can help, because artificial intelligence can help curate content that kind of fits into what you're studying or what you're learning. So that's really, I think I kind of talked around it a little bit there, but it's kind of, I think definitely ethics is my big thought, is that it's less about the technology, it's more about the people and what we do with the people as a result of changes in technology.
I was interviewing the head of Salesforce France last month, and he talks about Industry 5.0. And that will be, the fourth industrial revolution plus ethics. I think that's a massive one, ethics and philosophy and building that in. But
I mean, we've got to, there's a great book, I can't remember the author now, it's called Life 3.0, and he talks about the technology, the intelligence explosion, where artificial intelligence becomes more, he calls it general artificial intelligence, so something that isn't programmed to do a specific thing, but is generally intelligent. And he talks about that possibly coming into fruition, and whether that will happen in our lifetime or whether it will happen at all is very much up in the air at the minute. And that's fascinating. Life 3.0, I think it's called. I can't remember the name of the author though.
Max Tegmark. I have got it at home as well, but I think I'm about a third of the way through it, and then my human brain gave up. But no, it's a good one. I enjoyed that. Brilliant. Well, if people want to find out a little bit more about your work or follow what you're doing, are you a Twitter person, or how do you go about sharing what you're up to?
I'm on Twitter, so I'm quite active on Twitter. So I'm at John Brindle Tell, all one word, and that's Brindle. And I generally post about what I'm doing. I'm going to get back into blogging. I feel like I should be blogging a little bit more, so I'm going to start looking at that again. I do have a blogging space, but it's currently under construction.
Under construction. I love that. Okay, brilliant. Well, John, thank you so much. I really enjoyed all your frameworks that you shared with us as well, because I think that's always useful to have something to tackle the challenges with. So thank you for sharing those, and keep in touch as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Sophie. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We've got more Build Back Better episodes coming up with insights into the working lives of those building our new realities in remote working and online learning. And every Thursday I'll try and get out a throwback episode to pre-COVID times for a bit of light relief as well. So for now, thanks so much to John, to Ufi Voctech Trust, and to you all for listening in. I'm busy working hard on our new series coming online in September. And also we've got episode 200 coming up soon. So I don't even know yet who will be featured on that episode. So hopefully it will be one to remember. And thanks again. Have a great week. Bye-bye.